In the in the primary stage, a child loves his parents, then his brothers and sisters, and as he daily grows up, he begins to love his family, society, community, country, nation, or even the whole human society. But the loving propensity is not satisfied even by loving all human society. That loving propensity remains imperfectly fulfilled until we know who is the supreme beloved. Our love can be fully satisfied only when it is reposed in Krishna. This theme is the sum and substance of the Nectar of Devotion, which teaches us how to love Krishna in five different transcendental mellows. Dang, I really don't understand the mellows. Like, I just don't understand why he uses that word like that. What is,
Well, a mellow means a rasa. Rasa means taste, just like a taste of the taste that a father or a parent gets from serving his family members. That's a kind of rasa or taste. And the mellow, different mellows, it's the same in human society. You have a parental relationship with your son or daughter. You have a servitude relationship between the master and the servant. You have a friendly relationship with your friends, or you have a conjugal relationship with a lover. So those are the five kinds of, or actually you have like kind of like a neutral relationship if you like are looking at someone with awe and reverence, just like um, you don't have that servitude attitude right away. You just start looking at how great Krishna is. That's the Shanta Ras. These are the five mellows. The Shanta, Dasya. Shanta means like neutral. Dasya means servitude. Shakya means friendship. Vatsalya means parenthood. And Madhurya means um, conjugal affection.
it's like relationships?
Yeah,
Mellow.
they're just basic human relationships, but they can be perfected when you dovetail. See, Krishna is the best lover. He's the best friend. He's the best child, and he's the best all around. He's the perfect person to repose all our affection because that is our eternal position. We're all related to Krishna in one of those five different mellows or rasas. And the whole goal of Krishna consciousness is we're all eternally related to him in one of those different five mellows. But and Krishna consciousness means to uncover what our original relationship is with Krishna. We may have one of those, but we're not, those are revealed to us. They're not, then they're uncovered. We all have a particular relationship with Krishna, but we just don't know what it is because we forgot. But when we serve the spiritual master, he can gradually raise us to the propensity or to the awakening of what our relationship is with and by following in the footsteps of those who are already on the spontaneous platform, like say, it says, one of five primary rasas, it says, under the gradual guidance of the acharya, one is elevated devotional service becomes automatic. It becomes like automatic pilot. And you're automatically attracted by Krishna's name and form, and you follow in the footsteps, you follow the character of the residents of Vrindavan who are already on that spontaneous autopilot. And then you can develop that same kind of relationship. You'll be attracted by certain aspects of Krishna according to your own propensity. And all of this is revealed by Krishna himself and the spiritual master. Spiritual master is very important because he's the one that can actually, he's a representative of Krishna. So he can guide us the proper way. He's showing each and every person he's perfect representative of Krishna. And so Krishna always already knows what we are. We just have to ask him how to uncover that relationship, because we've forgotten after many millions of lives. Krishna's inviting us all to come back to that original um, home so that we can live forever. I mean, it really is a good deal. I mean, if you can automatically, it's like, if you got it, if you got a job where you get paid millions of dollars for eternity for doing something you really like, I mean, wouldn't that be, and then you can live forever too? I mean, there's nothing that's that is bad about Krishna consciousness. It doesn't have any deleterious effects. It doesn't have any uh, end. It's just an ever increasing ocean of happiness. So that is a good deal, as far as I'm concerned. That's just my humble opinion. But go ahead and read, Zoe. This is our loving propensity.
Our loving propensity expands just as a vibration of light or air expands, but we do not know where it ends. The nectar of devotion teaches us the science of loving every one of the living entities perfectly by the easy method of loving Krishna. We have failed to create peace and harmony in human society, even by such great attempts as the United Nations, because we do not know the right method. The method is very simple, but one has to understand it with a cool head. The nectar of devotion teaches all men how to perform the simple and natural method of loving Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead. If we learn how to love Krishna, then it is very easy to immediately and simultaneously love everything, every living being. It is like pouring water on the root of a tree or supplying food to one's stomach. The method of pouring water on the root of a tree or supplying foodstuffs to the stomach is universally scientific and practical, as every one of us has experienced. Everyone knows well that when we eat something, or in other words, when we put foodstuffs in the stomach, the energy created by such action is immediately distributed throughout the whole body. Similarly, when we pour water on the root, the energy thus created is immediately distributed throughout the entirety of even the largest tree. It is not possible to water the tree part by part, nor is it possible to feed the different parts of the body separately. The nectar of devotion will teach us how to turn the one switch that immediately brightens everything everywhere. One who does not know this method is missing the point of life.
Yeah, I mean, Prabhupada always gives the example of, their human society is trying to achieve peace in so many different ways, but they don't know the formula for peace. Prabhupada gave the formula for peace when he was in the United Nations, in front of the United Nations. He passed out a pamphlet talking about how the this misguided human civilization, they don't know the root of everything. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it talks about the common cause. They don't know the common cause and they just make up laws. See, that's the definition of a Shudra. A Shudra is somebody who's just like a temporary thing. If it's not satisfying, then he goes on to the next thing and creates something else. They create laws and destroy laws, and the scientists are the same thing. They create a theory and then they discard it and say that theory is no good, and then they make another theory. And
Yep.
somebody argued that Prabhupada's, well, that means they're getting closer and closer to the truth. And Prabhupada said, no, it means that they're always wrong.
Mm.
So, it's just the same thing. They're trying to create by some material arrangement. They don't know the root of everything. They don't know that all living beings are equal. I mean, Prabhupada in 50 years ago, 49 years ago, actually, in 1776, in 1976, he did an article on the Declaration of Independence. He called it declaring our dependence on God. And he said if the United Nations was really together, they would say, okay, there's so much land available in all these different countries, and they should delegate some land so people could come in here and till the land and produce their own food grains. If you're overpopulated or if you're being harassed by some criminal effects or something in the country, come here and get some land and then grow your own food. Very simple, and the result would be perfect because everybody, all God's children, has a right to share the Father's property. But because of our misdirected civilization, we think, okay, when the first settlers came here, the Native Americans were living here, and they didn't even have a conception of proprietorship. They knew that all the land was Wankatanka's land, the Great Spirit in the Lakota tradition. They considered that the whole earth belongs to Wakantanka. And so they didn't even have the conception that this is our land. Only when the Americans came here and he said, well, we belong to God's children, and so we have a right to God's property. But then when they come here, they claim that as their own, and then they say, okay, nobody else can come here. We're going to lock you up and send you to a gulag some here if you try to, come in our land, especially if you're brown or black, you know, because you're not American. Of course, so they're thieves. Actually, Prabhupada asked the question, what is their philosophy? They don't have a philosophy. Their philosophy is rogue philosophy. In other words, we'll take the land and then we'll claim it as our own and we won't let anybody else claim it, even though it's God's property. So the United Nations should actually be giving land to people, and letting them, you know, everything is created by God for our maintenance, and so they should share. Everybody should share the property of God, and the only reason that there's any kind of lacking of food or resources is because it's not being managed properly, and they're claiming it as their own property. The Jews are claiming that Israel is part of their property, and the Palestinians are claiming that Gaza is their property. Actually, none of it's their property. Nothing belongs to anybody. Everything belongs to God. And because they don't know that, they're fighting amongst themselves, just like a bunch of cats and dogs. Prabhupada called the United Nations. Every year they have more flags in front of the United Nations building, and they're all just like a bunch of cats and dogs fighting with each other because they don't have a common cause and they don't know how to serve Krishna, uh, the owner of everything, and how to um, distribute the property of God equally to everyone. And the Upanishad says that everyone has a right to what is allotted to them, but no one should take more than is necessary. And that way, everyone could live peacefully, and all the nations and the people in those nations would be working together to serve the origin of everything, which is God. So this is the way to have happiness, and just by understanding this that you're pouring water in the root of the tree. That's the other example that he gives. If the hand tries to eat the food itself, it's not going to work. If you pour water on the root of a tree, on the leaves and branches, it's not going to work. But if you pour water in the root, if you give food to the stomach, then the energy and the nourishment is equally distributed throughout the whole uh, body. The hand supplies the food, just like the different parts of the body. The hand doesn't eat the food itself; it supplies it to the mouth, and the mouth, the legs bring the hand to the food, and the food puts it in the mouth, and the mouth. And all the parts of the body work together for the nourishment of the whole body. So similarly, all the aspects of human society, if they work together for the whole, which is Krishna, ultimately a person, then there would be harmony and there wouldn't be any class envy, like the capitalists and the communists and this and that.
Mhm.
There is no there if everyone has a common cause and everyone's working together for the benefit of the original source of everything, then everyone can work in harmony. Otherwise, not. And they just try to make up a new rule and they always fight with each other. And here we are. But anyway, I guess you can read the next paragraph there, Alyssa.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Did we, I can't remember because I've had this conversation with other people. Did you and I discuss Wakantaka together?
Probably.
Okay,
Wankataka is a Lakota name for the Great Spirit.
right. That's why I'm wondering if you brought it up because you and I had
Yeah, I
talked.
think I think I probably brought it up before because I
Okay.
made a meme, Actually, I was going to make a sign, like they have a sign that I was going to put on my yard. It says no one is an immigrant on stolen land, or no one is foreigner.
Yeah.
on
Well,
stolen land. But the thing is, no one is a stranger in on Wankatanka's land. Wankatanka, he created the whole earth, and so everyone is welcome on the earth. It's God's property. It's not our property, and the father shares all of his property with his sons and daughters according to their needs. So it's actually the ultimate kind of communism, except instead of the state owning everything, Krishna owns everything, which is true.
right, right.
So, Krishna, like Srila Prabhupada, he called himself a spiritual communist. So he's actually to the left of Bernie Sanders. When you
Prabhupada.
I said the Prabhupada believed in that the Krishna himself is actually the owner of everything.
Mhm.
And, the idea of communism, the far left communists think that everything can be distributed accordingly. But that's just another form of materialism because the tendency of a human being is to become rich and want sense gratification for himself. And the communists do that too. I mean, look how rich Putin is. He's like a multi-billionaire. And all these despots and autocrats are just, taking money from the citizens and putting it in their pockets. And so, if they actually understood that everything is God's property and they tax and spend accordingly, the monarchs in Vedic times, they were like a rain cloud. They would collect the taxes, but then all of that tax would be redistributed in a proper way to the society to benefit the entire civilization. And there are no saintly kings nowadays, and so therefore you have to have some checks and balances. But unfortunately, we're living in a society right now where there are no checks and balances anymore, and we have a despot ruling everything, and everything's going to hell in a hand glider.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, we did talk about Wonka
I
Tonka.
thought so. I thought we had talked about that Gita verse about the blade of grass
Yeah,
that
nothing moves without a blade of grass.
right. And I told you that that was the vision that I had before I showed up at the Kirtan Center. Does that ring a
You
bell?
can look that up on Wikipedia. They have a section on Wankatanka. That's the Lakota definition of a great spirit. The idea of the all-pervading uh,
Yeah. Do you
great.
think that, I mean, do you think that they basically were and are, I mean, right? Because it's you can't speak in the past tense, but like collectively, do you think that that particular tribal system really inherently was practicing Krishna
Yeah, I
consciousness?
mean, actually, even the Aborigines were kind of like, even though they might have worshipped nature, they understood that there was a force behind nature, and they were in their own way. Everyone is a devotee, but it's just a matter of realization. And if if you don't understand the concept of God as a person, the Vedas recommend that you worship the universe, like the universal form of God, and then from there you can go on to the next step.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
everybody has different degrees of. But even the Aborigines, I think, are more advanced than a lot of the modern men because they're just greedy and sense gratifying, hogs and dogs. It's a civilization of hogs, dogs, camels, and asses, and they're
Hmm.
worshiping bigger animals. And the bigger animal can secure votes if they can somehow or other rig the system so that they can secure the votes, then they'll be the top dog. But it's not really that much of a compliment if you're being worshipped by other animals. You're just a big animal. That's all.
Hmm.
You're just a bigger thief. Like Alexander the Great. I saw this. Prabhupada was talking about how Alexander the Great was a great conqueror back in the Middle Ages, and he was ruling the kingdom and a lot of kingdoms because he conquered a lot of land. And there was a thief that was caught, and Alexander the Great was going to punish this thief. And the thief said, he argued his case. He said, I'm a small thief, but you're a big thief. So why are you why are you killing me? Actually, you're just a big thief. And then Alexander the Great said, "You're right. I'm just a big thief," and he let him go. And so that is actually a proof that Alexander the Great was intelligent, and he had a little bit of humility, and he understood that he was correct. But modern civilization, modern leaders, they can't even admit that they're thieves. You
Mhm.
know, they can't even understand.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, go ahead and read, Zoe.
As
Uh,
as far, as
read
far as
already?
Whoop,
okay,
where
uh,
are we?
as far as material necessities are concerned, the human civilization at the present moment is very much advanced in living comfortably, but still we are not happy because we are missing the point. Material comforts of life alone are not sufficient to make us happy. The vivid the vivid example is America, the richest nation of the world, having all facilities for material comforts, producing a class of men completely confused and frustrated in life. I am appealing here within to such confused men to learn the art of devotional service as directed in the nectar of devotion, and I'm sure that the fire of material existence burning within their hearts will be immediately extinguished. The root cause of our dissatisfaction is that our dormant, loving propensity has not been fulfilled despite our great advancement in the materialistic way of life. The nectar of devotion will give us practical hints how we can live in this material world perfectly engaged in devotional service and thus fulfill our desires in this life and the next. The nectar of devotion is not presented to condemn any way of materialistic life, but to but the attempt is to give information to religionists, philosophers, and people in general how to love Krishna. One may live without material discomfiture, but at the same time, he should learn the art of loving Krishna. At the present moment, we are inventing so many ways to utilize our propensity to love, but factually, we are missing the real point, Krishna. We are watering all parts of the tree, but missing the tree's root. We are trying to keep our body fit by all means, but we are neglecting to supply foodstuffs to the stomach. Missing Krishna means missing oneself also. Real self-realization and realization of Krishna go together simultaneously. For example, seeing oneself in the morning means seeing the sunrise also. Without seeing the sunshine, no one could see himself. Similarly, unless one has realized Krishna, there's no question of self-realization.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about, you try to keep the body fit by all means, but you neglect to supply food stuff to the stomach. Everybody's busy taking care of their bodies, doing yoga and working out and being healthy, but we're polishing the cage
Mm.
of a bird. The bird wants to be free, and we can't be free unless we're in the spiritual realm in connection with Krishna. So we're polishing the cage and keeping it nice, but meanwhile, the bird is dying because the bird really needs spiritual food. So we're neglecting the bird within, and we're just polishing the cage.
You want to hear what the guy at the temple told me, the one that reads hands? What's his name?
Tadaruchi.
Sadaruchi?
Yeah.
Tadaruchi. Yeah,
He,
I told him, I saw him right after I went there, and he has a tent set up usually on the side of the
yeah.
temple. And there had been just a big, huge windstorm, and his tent was smashed to smithereens. And I told him, hey, I thought you were like prescient of all these things. How come he said he was inside making copies on the Xerox machine. And I said, how come you didn't know that this windstorm was coming? You're supposed to be like,
You guys are, man, you guys are harsh on him, dude. You know who else gives him a hard time? Carlos.
well, I don't really give
Carlos
him
is
a hard time.
always
I was
messing
just
with him
joking with
too.
him, and he laughed, so I wasn't giving him a hard time or anything.
Yeah. What's Carlos's devotional name again? It's Nicho. Nicho.
Nityo.
Nicho was giving him a hard time too. He likes to drive
Oh,
by
Nityo,
him.
Nityo is like that. I mean,
Yeah,
he's kind of like,
he's a cut
he
up.
gives me a hard time too. I don't even talk to him anymore because he really, I mean, he really loves
He's a
to
prankster.
meeting people, I don't know, it's just with me at least. I mean, he's got a lot of friends. He's a very friendly person. I've actually been with him and had his association for years, but he made a couple of comments that really were actually offensive to one of my friends who
Oh,
was forced to leave New Vrindavan.
um,
steady Shalagram Dasi. She was a teacher in New Vrindavan, and Anuradha didn't like her because she was attached to Bhaktipada and her former spiritual master, who was my spiritual master. And they pushed her out, and they made some excuse that she was like pinching some kid's ear. And Nitya was arguing with that. She was crying on the way back to New Vrindavan. I took her from New York back to New Vrindavan because she was staying in New Vrindavan for a while after she got kicked out by Anuradha. They forced her out of her service there. And Nitya was saying, well, she's a good actor, and that just really pissed me off. I mean, that's
Mhm.
actually blasphemous.
Yeah.
And I couldn't take that anymore, so I don't even talk to him anymore. But, he has a tendency to be critical like that and have kind of a puffed up attitude. So I was just joking with Sadaruchi. He and I actually did potpourri pies back in the late 90s in Dayton. We used to sell stuff at Christmas Marathon, and he and I were living together in Dayton, Ohio during the Christmas Marathon and selling these pies for the farm, to raise money for the farm. But
Yeah. He was the one that told me, Sadaruchi, when he read my palm, he was talking about the bird in the cage, what you
oh
were
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about.
that's a common thing. That's a
Yeah.
very good
He was
proverb.
talking about the bird in the cage, and he was like, you're just, because I was telling him about like how, useless I feel in my vocational life.
Oh, you mean like as a speech therapist?
Yeah, because it was all about like, oh my God, like, will I ever be able to get out of this? Or like, what can I do? Like, this is like such a miserable existence. And he's like, you're just treating their physical disabilities. That's
Right.
all you're treating. You're not like going within for
Yeah.
their spiritual level.
Yeah, well, it's true. You have to feed the bird in the cage. You just can't take care of, like if the bird has a broken wing, you can mend the wing, but you have to let the bird out of the cage and the spirit soul wants to be free. And the only way we can be free is to be with Krishna in the spiritual world, because otherwise we're tied up in this material body in this material world, and this is not a nice place. I mean, Prabhupada was saying, like anybody who says this is a nice place, you can't. You have to die, you have to take birth, and you have to get sick, and you have to get old. I mean, what's nice about that? Is that nice death? There's no such thing as nice in this material world. Everything is miserable. So if you're miserable, then you're probably actually understanding reality a little bit. There's only two people who are actually happy in this material world. There's a pure devotee, and then there's a drunk who's like passed out in the gutter. And you ask the drunk to say, "How are you doing?" And he'll say, "I'm fine, I'm great." And he's happy, but the only other person that's happy, everybody else in between is kind of miserable, because they see the suffering in this material world. And if you realize that, but if you try to enjoy this material world, that's kind of living in an illusion, because Krishna certifies this place as temporary and miserable. I mean, he says it in the Bhagavad Gita, and whatever he says, it's a fact. This material world is temporary and it's miserable. It's full of miseries like birth, death, old age, and disease. The miseries of the body and the mind, the misery caused by other living entities, the miseries caused by nature. I mean, look at what happened in Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, that's called Adidaivic, the miseries caused by higher powers, natural disturbances and things like that, earthquakes, and excessive heat, floods, drought. Well, these things are all happening. And so this material world, there are different planets where you can take birth on, but this is like one of the middle planets, because there's suffering, and there's also a heavenly kind of, you can pretend like you're having fun. Just like the Melanie song. When I'm old, so Melanie was a singer-songwriter in the 70s. She said she wrote this song called Psychotherapy, and one of the lines was, um, "You may think you're having fun, but you're not having fun at all," as the id goes marching on. But so we're everybody thinking they're enjoying, but that's not real enjoyment. Real enjoyment is spiritual enjoyment, and that increases. And if we're trained up, we can enjoy all the time. But nobody can enjoy perpetually in sense gratification. It has a beginning and an end. That's what the Bhagavad Gita says also, that a wise person doesn't take pleasures in the gratification of the senses, which have a beginning and an end. A wise person doesn't delight in that because they know it's temporary. Real spiritual happiness is like it says, it can become automatic when you're actually attracted to Krishna and serving Krishna, then it's always there. And we just have to be trained. We're like, we're reading these books and we're being trained by the spiritual master and these books we're on training wheels and we have to be able to ride by ourselves. And death is the final exam. You have to fly your own plane at death. And so for a devotee, all of our training and all of the things that we do are just um, preparation for our final exam, which is death. And whatever you think of at the time of death, that state you're going to attain without fail.
Mhm.
So we have to practice and we have to purify ourselves so that we can become eligible to leave this material world altogether. And, even if we're partially, whatever we do is also in our eternal bank account. If we don't finish up our business in this life, it'll continue in our next life. And we'll be given a chance to take birth in maybe a good family or a rich family, and we won't have to work so hard so that you know, we can spend most of our time in Krishna
Meditating.
consciousness.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it's all just a base, gradual process. So
Mhm.
whatever miseries we're doing right now, we just have to thank Krishna that we have this human form of life so that we can make a choice to get out of here. Animals can't have that choice. They are just destined to do whatever they're doing. And they don't have a choice whether or not to leave this material world or not. So the worst kind of fear for a human being is to be shoved down into the animal species where you have to go through millions of bodies again until they get to the human form where you can actually escape. This is like an escape hatch. The human form of life is like an escape hatch from the material world. You can get out of the material existence completely through this Krishna consciousness. So that's why, we have to take advantage of it. So anyway, it's 7:45. We didn't get very far, but I, I try to wrap this up around 7:45 because it is kind of late. My wife has to get up early the next morning. She has to get up at like 4:30 in the morning, so we kind of try to wrap it up quickly
Okay.
so we can eat and everything. But does anybody have any questions before we?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Shik. Yeah.
Is everybody, are you guys coming to Kirtan on Thursday?
Um, I I think I'm gonna come to Kirtan. I'm probably gonna leave a little earlier though. I just can't stay that late. It's too hard for my schedule.
Yeah.
So I
Oh,
think
you mean leave Kirtan early. Okay.
yeah, I think I'm gonna try to like leave at least by like 8:30. I think that's just my kind of cutoff point. If I push it past that, then it's just I'm
Maybe
tired.
we should
Well,
just like,
you guys live in Wilkinsburg, right? That's kind of far.
Uh
she's next to me. It's not Wilkinsburg,
yeah.
but I'm
So
in Wilkinsburg. She's not.
Oh, what township do you live in? Swissvale?
Swissvale, yep.
Yeah, Swissvale.
It's pretty close. It's only like it takes me really 5 minutes to get over to her if I
You
drive over.
know, my wife always complains because she has to go eastbound on the Parkway. You know
Yeah.
Mm.
that song, I've been working on the railroad all live long day. She says, I've been riding on the Parkway all live
Oh
long day.
yeah, if you have to
And the
go in and out
eastbound is
of the
horrible. It's
tunnel,
like a
it's a
parking
nightmare.
lot every time she goes to work in
Yeah.
the morning,
Yep.
because you have to go through that construction site there.
Oh yeah,
So, Shik, are you coming on Thursday or no?
I'm not sure actually.
Okay.
I know I'm definitely going to come when Kripa Maya was scheduled to come.
oh wow.
Remember him?
Yep.
Yeah, we love Kripa.
Love
Why?
my
He was sick, and I was definitely going to check out because I record him. I mean, he's so talented. He's such a saintly person.
Yeah,
Um, but we'll
agreed.
see. I don't know but
Yeah, I don't think he's coming this Thursday. I think they have some other speaker.
yeah. Okay. Well, whatever. But if I don't see you in the future, I'll see you in the pasture, as they say in New Vrindavan. You look like you're in the pasture right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go chop some wood and make some
Yeah.
cheese.
Ronald Reagan, he had dementia at the end. He thought he was a cowboy. He said, "I'm going to chop some horse and ride some wood." So anyway, that's not funny to make fun of people's dementia, but yeah. So
It's funny to make fun of
if
Ronald
I don't
Reagan.
see you on
It
Thursday,
is
we'll
funny to
see
make
you
fun of
next
Ronald
next
Reagan. I agree. Sorry.
Sunday. We'll
You
see
guys
you guys
got it.
next Sunday. So
All right.
thank
Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
Hare
Haribol.
Krishna.
Namaste, Haribol.